Number 10. George Reeves, Superman, dies in supposed suicide. George Reeves, best known for portraying Superman in the 1950s TV series Adventures of Superman, tragically passed on June 16, 1959 from a gunshot. While it is widely believed to have been a suicide, some suspect that he was murdered. Many actors in Hollywood at the time did not believe the suicide story, and instead believed that he was murdered. In the book Hollywood Kryptonite, authors Sam Kashner and Nancy Schoenberger believe that Toni Mannix, the wife of Eddie Mannix, a known fixer and vice president of MGM, was involved in some way as she had been having an affair with Reeves. Eddie Mannix was rumored to have ties to the mafia, so his involvement is certainly possible. Toni had confessed to a priest that she was involved. However, her testimony is unreliable as she suffered from Alzheimer's disease, and thus it's impossible to know if her confession was legitimate. Number 9. Fatty Arbuckle. One of the first big scandals in Hollywood, Fatty Arbuckle was a celebrity during the silent film era. However, at the height of his career, he was put behind bars for the murder of Virginia Rapp. According to Rapp's companion that evening, she was found sick in the bathroom of Arbuckle's hotel and had to be taken to the hospital. Her companion believes that Arbuckle had sexually assaulted Rapp and in the process caused her bladder to rupture. An autopsy found no evidence that an assault took place, and his lawyers produced evidence showing that Rapp had a chronic bladder condition. He was charged with manslaughter as a result. While he was ultimately acquitted, the damage to his career had been done, and Arbuckle could no longer find work as an actor. Number 8. Natalie Wood's death. Let me start by saying, there are many unknowns in this case, and while there has been an alleged cover-up, nothing has ever been proven. The story goes that Natalie Wood, a woman who feared water her entire life and could not swim, went on a weekend boat trip to Catalina Island with her husband Robert Wagner and fellow actor Christopher Walken, as well as the captain of the ship, Dennis Davern. Her body was found 1 mile away from the boat. The autopsy showed that she had bruises on her body and arms and an abrasion on her left cheek. However, where they came from is unknown. Allegedly, Wood and Wagner argued that evening, which Wagner admits to in his memoir. Authorities say that it is possible that she was assaulted before she drowned. However, it is just as possible that she simply slipped. As things currently stand, the death has been ruled an accidental drowning. Some believe that a cover-up involving Robert Wagner was devised by some very high-up people, including Ronald Reagan. Whatever it was that happened, what we know to be true is that Natalie Wood, tragically, perished by drowning that night, and a great talent was lost. 7. Celebrity abortion protocols. I want to preface this by warning anyone who has had to deal with a terminated pregnancy or child loss, this is going to be hard to digest, so please proceed with caution. It's no secret that old Hollywood had an excessive degree of control over their actors and actresses, with many being unable to get married. However, given these women were seen as assets to the studio and not as people, if they were discovered to be pregnant, the studios would often force actresses to terminate the pregnancy. Studios would cover up the reason the actress had disappeared and force them back to work shortly after the termination. Yeah, pretty disgusting stuff. I don't really feel that I have the right to comment on how hard that must have been for the actresses, but my sympathies go out to anyone who has ever had to face something like that. I can't even begin to understand how horrible that must be. Number 6. Judy Garland's entire career. This poor woman. So again, it's no secret that old Hollywood was a really awful place to be, especially if you were an actress. And Judy Garland seems to have gone through more than any woman should ever have had to go through. Garland was famously overworked, and the studio put her on drugs, specifically amphetamines and barbiturates, as well as adrenaline shots and pills so that they could stay awake and work longer hours. And MGM head Louis B. Mayer forced her to sit on his lap, groped her, and complimented her as he did so. Tragically, Garland passed away at the young age of 47 after overdosing on barbiturates. Number 5. Alfred Hitchcock was a stalker. According to actress Tippi Hedren, who starred in Alfred Hitchcock's films The Birds and Marnie, famed director Alfred Hitchcock stalked, harassed, and sexually assaulted her during the time they worked together. Allegedly, Hitchcock was possessive of Hedren, and he warned the other castmates not to touch her, and that if he saw her talking to another man, he would have an unbreakable stare on his face. He even had her handwriting analyzed and had his assistants make sure she was not seeing other men. Hitchcock supposedly would have his driver pass by her home, and in one particular instance, he entered her dressing room and aggressively put his hands on her. Discussions of Hitchcock have notably left out this piece of information until recent years, when victims have come forward with allegations of his inappropriate acts. And in light of these allegations, I can't say I'll be watching his films again anytime soon. Number 4. Woody Allen child sexual abuse. Yeah, this is a big one, and not too long ago either. So, Woody Allen, for those who don't know, is an acclaimed director, but also one who is quite notorious for his inappropriate relationships. Most notably, marrying his ex-wife's adopted daughter. But in 1992, he was accused of sexually molesting his adopted daughter, Dylan Farrow, when she was 7 years old. While there are many claims involved in that case, what we know for certain is that Allen had already been in therapy for his behavior regarding Dylan. He refused to take a polygraph test regarding the incident, a judge found his behavior inappropriate and felt Dylan needed protection, and Dylan's allegations are corroborated by 3 other adults present during the time of the incident. So, yeah, that's one more director I won't be watching. Number 3. Jimmy Savile. This one's a real disappointment. So, Jimmy Savile, famous for the UK show Jim'll Fix It, where he had children write in to have their wishes granted, a show many in the UK, including Ricky Gervais, have cited writing to, died in 2011. A year later, ITV aired a documentary that examined the claims of sexual abuse against Savile over the years. And what was found was unimaginable. The Leeds General Infirmary and Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital found that he had sexually assaulted staff and patients between ages 5 and 75 over the decades. A report by the NSPCC and Metropolitan Police stated that 450 people made complaints against Savile, with the ages at the time of the assaults ranging from 8 to 47, including 28 children under age 10. Yeah, pretty much a textbook example for never meeting your heroes. Number 2. Loretta Young adopts her own child. So, as discussed before, the old Hollywood system tried to force women to terminate their pregnancies so they could be used as assets for as long as possible. However, when this occurred for Loretta Young, such an action was considered unthinkable for her. Loretta Young found herself pregnant with the child of Clark Gable, in a relationship that she has since described as date rape. After finishing shooting the film The Call of the Wild in 1935, Young returned from a hiatus with an adopted daughter. The truth is that the child was her own, but she covered up her parentage. Old Hollywood, we will not miss you. Let's end on a happier note, shall we? Number 1. Kylie Jenner's pregnancy. So, nothing too outlandish here. Prior to giving birth, Kylie Jenner took steps to hide her pregnancy from the media. Of course, plenty of sources leaked information, but for the most part, she was able to maintain some degree of privacy and safely gave birth to her daughter Stormi in 2018. The simple reason for the cover-up was she simply wanted to prepare privately and do this outside the public eye. And given how public a figure she normally is, you can't blame her for wanting a little bit of privacy.
In at number 10, George Raft. George Raft was a stylish leading man that took roles in a ton of gangster and mafia style movies. He always would play the tough guy, the convict, or the rough mobster, although it was his real life association with the mafia that pushed casting directors to lean in this direction. George even said that he never regarded himself as an actor. He said, "I wanted to be me." But you can't let that kind of information out to the public, it'll destroy the prestige of Hollywood, so instead they hid his mafioso background and kept casting him in roles that fit that persona. Although as much as Hollywood tried to hide it, the mob didn't care to. In fact, it was Bugsy Siegel, a known mobster with movie connections, that helped George break into Hollywood in the first place. Even while filming the 1932 Scarface movie, people like Al Capone kept showing up on set, and reportedly it was Capone teaching the director how to fire a Tommy gun while filming that really started to draw attention. In at number 9, Marilyn Monroe. I'm sure we could do an entire video just on Marilyn alone, but unfortunately we don't have the time. Her real name was Norma Mortensen, but later in life she would transform into this pop culture icon that for the most part was considered to be the standard of beauty. She was married 3 times, but after the 3rd divorce, her life began to get really rough. This is well before TMZ though was ever a thing, so any of the drama in Marilyn Monroe's life was hidden away. After the divorce, she was being brought around to Hollywood parties to entertain the executives. It was rumored that she had brief romances with people like Marlon Brando and Frank Sinatra. Oh, and let's not forget the time that she had an affair with John F. Kennedy while he was the President of the United States. And I don't want to sound like some sort of conspiracy theorist here, but Monroe was found dead in her home 3 months after that affair. Something to look into. In at number 8, Roman Polanski. March 10th, 1977, Roman Polanski conducts a photo shoot with an underage woman at Jack Nicholson's house. Then Jack's girlfriend at the time, Angelica Huston, came home to find the director's jacket along with some cameras. Moments later, Polanski and the young woman came around the corner. Roman introduced this girl to Angelica and said that they had been taking photos. And the victim, Samantha Geimer, would later testify that Roman gave her champagne and then forced her to have with him when she was only 13 years old. People found Polanski to be so prolific that they were willing to turn a blind eye to his nefarious behavior just so that they could remain on his good side and, well, be in his films. However, his victim uncovered this scandal when she alerted the authorities as to what had just happened to her. Roman pleaded not guilty and then immediately fled the country. Even 26 years later, he could not accept an Oscar for his film The Pianist because there was still a warrant out for his arrest. On May 3rd, 2018, the Academy finally recognized what a creep that he was and announced that they were going to expel Polanski. In at number 7, Charlie Chaplin. Now I understand how that name may form a thought in your head that says, no, not Charlie Chaplin, what did he do? However, this scandal only slightly involves Chaplin, but regardless, he was smack dab in the middle of it. William Randolph Hearst was an evil businessman, politician, and newspaper publisher. Hearst believed that Charlie Chaplin was having an affair with his mistress Marion Davies. However, instead of just confronting Chaplin, he invited him and a number of other important film industry professionals to join him on his yacht. Amongst them was Thomas Ince. Thomas was a Hollywood producer looking for new investors to keep his studio afloat. Now what you have to understand is that during this time the newspaper was really the only way that people got their information, and William ran the newspaper. So naturally when Hollywood producer Thomas Ince was shot, the story was just buried. What actually happened was Hearst was trying to shoot his gun at Charlie Chaplin on the yacht, but missed and killed Thomas Ince instead. And the scandal was uncovered once the LA Times ran with the headline, "Movie producer shot on Hearst yacht." And now to move on to the Me Too portion of the video, and like I said earlier, some of these details may be very hard to hear. In at number 6, Jeffrey Tambor. Working as an actor for nearly 4 decades, Jeffrey Tambor's career came to a screeching halt with the start of the Me Too movement. At the time, his career was at an all-time high. He was set to star in the show Transparent and take part in the comeback of Arrested Development. Slowly but surely though, women started coming forwards and they all shared an eerily similar story of Tambor making rude sexual comments towards them. One of his accusers even said that Jeffrey had been watching her sleep, and his ex-assistant on the show Transparent eventually broke her silence and opened up about what really happened on the set of Transparent, and as a result of her claims, he was fired from the show. In at number 5, Louis C.K. For years, Louis C.K. denied any and all claims made against him that he ever acted inappropriately with women. Even when rumors began swirling on Twitter, friends like Jon Stewart were quick to come to his defense. However, once the New York Times published their article detailing the pattern of Louis' sexual misconduct, nearly all of the comedy community let the cat out of the bag. Once it was made public, everyone was coming out of the woodwork to say that they knew that he had strange sexual desires all along, but worked with him regardless.
You always find yourself back to a moment of, did I miss something? Could I have done more? Or the thing. And in this situation, I think we all could have.
Also, you didn't see in that clip, but Matt Lauer was the one who asked Jon Stewart how it felt to hear Louis admit what he had done. Now, get ready for the next person on this list. In at number 4, Matt Lauer. Matt Lauer is a former television news anchor and co-host of NBC's Today Show, as well as a contributor for Dateline NBC. His Me Too accusations shocked many fans due to his often smiley and wholesome demeanor. The exact same month that he was covering the news about Louis C.K., he too was exposed as one of the most extreme cases and explicit forms of workplace harassment. Out of all of the reporters that had been Me Too'd, Lauer was the worst. More than 10 women who worked for the network had complained about harassment by Matt, but nothing was done. As the story unfolded, his case became even more frightening to take in. Apparently, he had installed a button underneath his desk that would allow him to close the office door while seated so that he could lock his victims in the office with him, which sounds like something a supervillain would do. And in his apology statement, Lauer said, "There are no words to express my sorrow and regret for the pain I have caused others by words and actions. To the people I hurt, I am truly sorry." You're only sorry that you got caught. Nice try though. In at number 3, Kevin Spacey. Kevin for a long time was by far the most demanded actor of his generation. His library of roles was huge and his fame made the actor seem untouchable. Then Broadway actor Anthony Rapp came forward and accused Spacey of forcing himself on him when he was only 14 years old. Following that, 15 other men came forward accusing Spacey of a similar experience. His career was pretty much cancelled at that point, but Kevin found a way to make things even worse for himself. In his apology, he took a moment to come out as gay, for which the LGBTQ community denied any association. As a result of these accusations, Spacey was fired from House of Cards and was removed from the film All the Money in the World, and safe to say the only acting that he'll be doing now is probably on his YouTube page. In at number 2, Harvey Weinstein. There are not too many cover-up scandals like the case of Harvey Weinstein. The way this man rose to power was by co-founding the entertainment company Miramax with his brother Bob. After leaving Miramax, Harvey and Bob would go on to found the Weinstein Company. They were a mini major film studio that was casting some of the top names in Hollywood. However, Harvey's sexual abuse was out of control. In 2017, 6 women filed a lawsuit against Harvey claiming that there were actions being taken to cover up the assaults and they amounted to civil racketeering. In the lawsuit, they also said that there was a coalition of companies and people that took part in what they referred to as the Weinstein sexual enterprise. After the legal process was started, over 80 other women came forward to accuse Harvey of sexual assault. Last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Bill Cosby. You had to see this one coming as our number 1 spot. I mean, come on. Rightfully so. What this man did was absolutely deplorable. Cosby was found guilty of 3 counts of drug assaulting Andrea Costrand in 2004, and more than 60 women have accused Cosby for years of inappropriate behavior. At 80 years old, Bill Cosby is most likely going to die in prison, which is just absolutely wild considering that for the longest time, we referred to him as America's dad. His dark scandals were hidden by everyone that worked closely with him, and the women that tried to speak up were silenced. Although, thanks to the brave victims that stepped forward, Cosby's cover-up is finally over.
At number 10, Chris Brown. Chris Brown has had a rocky past. There have been a lot of scandals we've talked about, like his 2009 Rihanna incident, and even the time he got banned from the gym. But there's another scandal that people don't talk about and pretend like it never happened. In 2016, the singer actually got into a day-long standoff with SWAT. This all came about after Chris allegedly pointed a firearm at a woman. She tried to run away, but Chris told her that she could leave and have her personal possessions back if she agreed to sign a non-disclosure agreement and forget the whole thing. She refused and ran away. Chris followed her in his car, but the woman was able to hide in a neighbor's backyard. Eventually, the police were called about the incident, but Chris refused to let the police in his home without a warrant, so they set up camp. Chris went on to have a standoff with them. Helicopters flew overhead and it was a big to-do. Eventually, Chris was arrested and the whole ordeal just sort of blew over, but I'm surprised that no one talks about this anymore. At number 9, Hugh Grant. The world was shocked when news broke of Hugh Grant's arrest in the summer of 1995, but not shocked enough to keep this scandal alive. People pretend like this scandal never happened. Hugh was arrested after picking up a sex worker and asking for a pleasure favor, if you catch my drift here. He was picked up by officers shortly after meeting her, and soon his mugshot was on the cover of every tabloid. Hugh ended up releasing a statement apologizing to his girlfriend Liz, but soon the heat was turned up again after the woman he met with that night spilled the beans on their whole encounter, claiming that Hugh told her that he, quote, always wanted to sleep with a black woman, end quote. In the end, Hugh didn't have many legal repercussions, only having to pay a $1,000 fine. Let me know though if you know about the scandal and why you think no one really talks about it anymore. I mean, people bring up old scandals all the time, so why has this one remained buried for so long? Before I carry on with the list, I'd like to quickly ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and also go and check out my gaming channel, Viper Girl, if that piques your interest as well. At number 8, OJ Simpson. You know, after being acquitted of a severe criminal charge, you'd think that your best bet would be to lay low for a while until things blow over so you can just move on with your life, right? Well, not OJ Simpson. In 1994, after he was found not guilty of killing his ex-wife, OJ thought it was a bright idea to write a book. Not just any kind of book though. A creative masterpiece of a book that was a fictional narrative of the crimes he was just acquitted of. Now you're probably thinking, well, that's basically every true crime book in a nutshell. But no. This This book was told from OJ's point of view if he was the killer. The book, called If I Did It, was met with a lot of controversy and backlash because of how insensitive it was to the victims and their families. To make matters worse for him, it also made people think that he was really guilty of the crimes because of the details of the book. Things just fit together suspiciously well, and it made people think that OJ was just bragging about having gotten away with this crime. On top of that, it was supposed to get a TV adaptation, but it was all scrapped after the backlash he and his ghostwriter got became too much. This is probably the dumbest move you could make after being fresh out of a highly publicized case where you almost went to jail. The fact that people just forgot about this is beyond me. At number 7, Jeremy Meeks. Now, I really want your opinion on this next one because there's just something a little bizarre about how this guy rose to fame, and no one's really talking about it. Jeremy Meeks is an actor and model who rose to fame because one of his mugshots went viral. Yes, I said mugshots. This guy was dubbed the hot felon and has been able to turn his life around thanks to becoming a meme. Before becoming the famous model he is today, however, he was in and out of prison for years. In the past, he's been charged with robbery, possession of a firearm, and resisting arrest. In total, he spent over 9 years in prison. In 2014, when Jeremy was arrested, this mugshot that he received was the one that caused him to become a meme and rise to fame. His last time in prison was in 2016, and since then, he's turned his life around and has risen to fame. Some people think that his rise to fame needs to be more talked about because he's been found guilty of violent crimes in the past, but no one really acknowledges that anymore. Is that something that should be discussed, or should we just pretend like it never happened? At number 6, Cardi B. In 2019, when rapper Tekashi 6ix9ine took the stand, he threw a lot of people under the bus. People in the rap community, as well as some fans, see Tekashi as a snitch now because of all the information he gave while on trial. One aspect of that trial that pretty much everyone has glossed over is the fact that he revealed that Cardi B was part of a notorious gang as a teenager. It was revealed in court that Cardi was a part of the Bloods gang. A representative from Cardi's label insisted that this information was untrue, probably just to protect her image, but in a 2018 interview, Cardi revealed that she had been in a gang as a teenager, so it looks like this could actually be true information. Either way, I don't think anyone will see Cardi in a different light because of this, but it's still crazy to think that we completely glossed over this scandal and no one talks about it. At number 5, Chris D'Elia. 2020 was a year of exposures and cancellations for a lot of celebrities. Chris D'Elia faced multiple allegations of sexual misconduct and harassing underage girls online last year, and though it was big news at the time, no one seems to be talking about it anymore. Multiple women came forward to share their unpleasant experiences with the comedian, from unwanted advances to indecent exposure and manipulation. Now, in 2021, Chris is facing more allegations and people aren't talking about it. In a lawsuit filed in early March, Chris was accused of soliciting private content from a young woman under the age of 18. Though this happened in 2014 when she was 17, she has been inspired by other women who've come forward to tell her story and seek justice. The investigation into Chris's alleged crimes has revealed that he solicited over 100 photos from this woman, but justice will be served. His actions and experiences with these young women have impacted their lives, and now they have to live with that. The allegations against Chris have damaged his career so much after he was dropped from his agency and manager, and this will probably get worse as more women continue to come forward. At number 4, Woody Allen. Another scandal that people seem to have glossed over is one surrounding Woody Allen and his marriage to his adopted daughter, Soon-Yi. Soon-Yi was adopted when she was about 7 years old by Woody and Mia Farrow, and they eventually got married in 1997. When reports came out about their marriage, this took a lot of people by surprise and made a lot of people mad. Reports came out years later in 1992 that Woody was having an affair with Soon-Yi while married to Mia Farrow, and shortly after their marriage ended, Woody publicly announced his relationship with his adopted daughter. The couple have defended their relationship at every turn, especially now that the bombshell documentary Alan v. Farrow has been released. The couple remains together and they seem to be happy, but a lot of people just can't get over how this relationship began, and maybe people just pretend like this never happened because it's so unconventional. At number 3, Caitlyn Jenner. Here's another celebrity who's caused a scandal that people just pretend never happened. In 2015, Caitlyn Jenner was involved in a severe 4-car crash in LA that sadly ended with one person losing their life. According to sources, Caitlyn was driving on the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu when she hit the back of a 69-year-old woman's car. The impact was so heavy that it sent the woman's car into oncoming traffic, where she was hit again by another driver. The woman, Kimberly Howe, passed away shortly after this incident. An investigation into the cause of this crash was conducted, and after officials looked into the crash, it was found that Caitlyn was not speeding in this case, as was alleged, and was actually traveling slower than Howe. The crash was caused because Caitlyn failed to brake in time to avoid a collision with another car, and that it was all just a tragic accident. After deliberations, the court ruled that Caitlyn would be cleared of charges against her, as the prosecutor could not determine that Caitlyn was responsible for the crash. Caitlyn later went on to sue the paparazzi in 2016 because she claimed that they had been following her that day and were partially to blame for the incident. At number 2, Bruno Mars. Bruno Mars isn't someone you hear much from these days. Recently, he announced a new single and collaborative album is soon to come, but other than that, he's not really making much news. The fact that he's not making very many waves in Hollywood these days could be the reason why people don't acknowledge one of his biggest past controversies. Back in 2010, Bruno got into some legal trouble after he was arrested in Las Vegas after a show. The singer was detained for suspected possession of that magic white no-no-snow. According to the police report, security guards from the hotel he was staying at discovered that he may have been in possession of illegal substances, and so they called the authorities to look into it. It was later found that he was in possession of nearly 3 grams of that no-no-snow, and he was arrested and charged. In order to avoid jail time, Bruno was offered a plea deal which he ended up accepting. As punishment, he was ordered to pay a fine and serve 1-year probation. I can understand why no one talks about it because this happened over 10 years ago, but it's been so buried that a lot of people don't even know that this happened. And finally at number 1, Blake Jenner. Blake Jenner is known to many fans for his time on the show Glee. While working on the show, he met actress Melissa Benoist, and they soon began a romantic relationship. Things seemed fine on the surface as they eventually got married, but behind the scenes, there was a darker truth. In late 2019, Melissa came out and broke her silence on her experience with domestic violence involving her then-husband Blake. Melissa released a 14-minute IGTV video where she opened up about her experiences being in a bad relationship and recounted some instances of physical and emotional abuse. One of the most harrowing stories she told in this video detailed how Blake had once thrown a phone at her face, which tore her iris, broke her nose, and has permanently altered her vision. She spoke out about the emotional torment she faced regarding the jealousy Blake felt when Melissa was on set, saying that he refused to let her have any romantic scenes with other men. Melissa tried covering up the injuries that she sustained by telling people that she was just accident prone, but in reality, she was a victim of Blake's outbursts. Many people came to her defense and condemned Blake's actions, but after this died down, no one really acknowledged it again. If there's anything we've learned from the countless people over the last year alone who have exposed those who have hurt them, is that these things need to be acknowledged and people need to take accountability for hurting others.